Hi, I'm Dr. Carl Krub, and you're watching Prevention Live. Before we begin today's show, and we have a long, various and sundry show in store for you here today, I wanted to note that we have our floor director today is Dale, the son of Jay Wienko, our producer. So Jay is back in master control. I can't really see him, that dark glass back there. Maybe it's not the dark glass, Jay. Maybe it's these 5,000 voltage lights over here in my eyes. Any of you out there suffering from seasonal affective disorder, for which you may know the therapy is bright light, should come here and sit and watch while I do the show, because you won't have any problems after this. Anyway, thanks to Jay and to Dale for doing today's show. I wanted also to wish our viewers a belated Happy Valentine's Day and also Happy President's Day. And I was hearing a report on the news of Dan Rather lamenting the combination of Lincoln and Washington, those two birthdays, into one President's Day. Dan Rather felt, and I think I agree, that those presidents deserve their own day of commemoration. And by making it President's Day, we're not quite sure what we're honoring. I mean, does that include Nixon? Does that include Hoover? Who are we talking about here? It's Washington and Lincoln. Anyway, I wanted to also thank Mrs. Frances Damery, who was at my office yesterday, who said it was time for a new show. She's seen the same show over and over. I wanted to thank my daughter Amabel, who helped us with last month's show, the last show we did. And I wanted to wish a happy birthday to my oldest daughter, Chloe, turning 12 years old this coming week. We're going to be celebrating her birthday at Bolero Bowling on Coolidge, and our good friends there, Bridget and Gerald Imhoff. We're going to be doing some bowling to celebrate Chloe's birthday. Without any further delays, I'd like to get into today's show. We have a lead-off article today. Peter Safar, the father of CPR. This is the man who invented those chest compressions you see on television in an ER. And for those of you in the medical business, you have done this cardiopulmonary resuscitation, where you compress the chest and then you breathe into the mouth of the victim. And of course, many people today are alive because of this wonderful technique. And we express our condolences and expressions of sympathy to his family on their loss. I had to wonder, though. I was talking to my brother Frederick, who's over at the office now working today. I wonder if he was a no CPR, because this is the affair that has happened. We use the term CPR more today in terms of no CPR. If you hear the term CPR, it's usually got a no in front of it. Is he a no CPR? And this is what's happening to many of the elderly. He's 79 here. A person will be afflicted with something or other, perhaps a severe lung disease or heart disease or even cancer. And then everybody wants to know, are they a no CPR? In other words, do they want not to be resuscitated? So I would say that most people today at 79 years old, I hate to say it, a good percentage of them consider themselves no CPR. So I wonder if Mr. Safar ever benefited from his own technique. You have to wonder. Moving right along, there's the article on Dr. Safar, the anesthesiologist who developed life-saving cardiopulmonary resuscitation techniques, widely used today, died in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He died of cancer, so I imagine he probably was a no CPR. This is an article talking about switching topics. This is my lament for today's women, and men really, that we have mechanized and factored out all exercise from the daily lifestyle. One of the things that I can remember as a child seeing vividly were my grandmother and even my mother laboring hard in the laundry room without air conditioning, with laundry lines in the backyard, scrubbing clothes, ironing clothes with real irons, heavy irons. Today's irons seem like light, ever since they came up with these irons that shoot out steam. But in the old days, irons were very heavy, maybe 5, 6, 7 pounds. And they took a long time to heat up, and you had to really push. And none of the clothes were perma-pressed. You know this permanent press? My shirt is permanent, but my pants are permanent pressed. My wife has never ironed since I've known her. Anything, all right? There's no discredit to her, it's just we factored it out. We factored out so much of the exercise from daily life, attached garages, doors that open themselves in the garages, that we no longer have anything physical to do. If you step outside of your home right now, I'll give you 30 seconds to step outside and tell me, do you have sidewalks running in front of your house? Now, if you live in Royal Oak, you probably do. But if you're in a suburban area where much of our population is today, you'll see no sidewalks. Tell me right now, it's morning time, do you see any kids walking to school? I would venture to guess you don't, because most of them go by bus or driven by car. There's no walking, there's no washing, there's nothing to do anymore. So people say, why are we gaining weight? We must be overeating. You know what? Nobody's overeating. Did you know after 25 years in practice, I can tell you nobody overeats. I've checked my patients' diets, they're fine. We're under-exercising. That's the problem. This article on wash day blues, some of the wash day blues, we should have those wash days back again. That would help tremendously, and all these women could stop going to Weight Watcher and Jenny Craig and going on protein diets and getting sick and depressed. In the old days, women smoked a lot and men smoked a lot. The fact was that with exercise, so much exercise in the daily lifestyle, the cigarettes did not have much of a health impact in those exercising individuals. But today, in the sedentary lifestyle, cigarettes are very dangerous. That could be the topic of an entire show. I don't want to spend any more time on that. I have miles to go before I sleep, like Robert Frost said. There is so little labor involved, I don't have to beat my laundry against a rock or scrub it on a washboard or hang it on a clothesline. I put it on the machine and close the lid, laments Dawn Barber, quoted in this article. Moving along, retirement goal, life on the lake in their 50s. It has been a sad affair in this Bush administration that it has mirrored exactly, for those with good memories, the economic situation that happened under the first George Bush I, and that is loss of jobs and readjustment of retirement plans. It saddens me when people need to do this, because it's long been my opinion that people work too many years, they work too hard, and with the advent of computers, now they not only work hard and long, but they have to work very efficiently. Look at wherever your place of employment is, wherever you're watching the show today, whether it's at work or home. I believe you can verify that the job place has become extremely efficient. And there's a certain stress that comes with that efficiency. For example, when the printer doesn't work, the scanner doesn't work, the computer won't boot, the computer locks up, you lose a document, you lose a whole bunch of documents, your hard drive crashes. These stressors that we see in today's job place are vastly different from those stressors that we experienced back in the 50s when I worked in my father's print shop with large machines. If the machine didn't work well, we oiled the machine. If a part broke, we called the mechanic. If the paper wouldn't print, we'd flutter the paper. I remember these are issues in the printing business. You know, we never had stress like you see in today's job place. Part of the problem is you have this high stress with a sedentary lifestyle. The point of me putting this article up was that I would wish for my patients and my viewers that you would be very cautious about your investments and make sure that you secure those retirement plans and have a reverence for them. I think everybody should look at 60 as the age of retirement. That doesn't mean you go on Social Security necessarily, at least to cut back on your time and enjoy some of this wonderful world that God created. And don't just die here in Royal Oak having seen nothing. Really, there should be an itinerary from the time you're in school of places you should visit. And right within this country, for example, from Alaska to Hawaii. I am sad to say that many of our patients live their lives, get to old age, and die, and really never financially can afford to see this wonderful planet. And that should be one of the goals of all people who watch this show and those who don't watch it, okay? All right, let's keep going now. The grab-and-go breakfast, you know how things are. If your house is anything like mine, in spite of my advancing age, I have young children. And I've seen, even this very morning, the hectic nature of breakfast. I'm reminded of something my daughter's teacher, Mrs. Hamilton, told me yesterday about my daughter. I have one daughter who's very painfully thin almost, and she has a very difficult time eating any other way but slowly. So needless to say, in our kitchen in the morning, she can't eat anything. It's just too frenzied. And I think frenzied is the word for most kitchens, getting those kids off to school. To make a long story short, I fully approve of this concept, you might think that I would be against it. You might think that being a preventive health practitioner, I would say, no, 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 you must eat fresh cut fruit and vegetables every morning, a whole glass of milk, etc. I'm all for this concept of grab and go, healthy breakfast concepts, vitamins added, with an understanding that life has become quite hectic for the kids and for the adults. So this is not only for children, it's for adults as well. We just have to make sure that they're not full of junk calories, all carbohydrate, that we do examine the labels, all right? But I'll tell you right now, this concept, you're going to see advancing more and more as people get busier and busier, right? Continuing on, just briefly, I don't know how I'm going to get through these articles if I take this long on every one. Maybe I'll try to speed up my tempo. This Tour de France, you read about this in Lance Armstrong and his steroids and his brain cancer and his testicular cancer, and then he comes back from brain and testicular cancer and then wins the Tour de France for 8 times or 9 times or whatever he's doing. You know, one has to wonder, when all these riders test positive for steroids, not only what are we doing with these professional athletics where all the athletes take steroids and ephedra and all kinds of other drugs, but what maybe this steroid business had, if Lance Armstrong does use steroids, what effect it might have had on his cancer. Because we know that there are many negative effects of steroid use, anabolic steroid use. You'll notice sometimes hair loss in female athletes. You'll notice extremely bulging muscles in female athletes. We know that prostate cancer is a risk of using steroids. We know that heart attack is a risk. Who can forget the, again, I'm not accusing any particular athlete, but the athletes themselves say that they're rampant in the professional athletics. The athletes are saying this. So it's not like we're making false accusations, which would be a very terrible thing to do. But the point is that I guess the bottom line is anybody in the United States who is encouraging their child to become a professional athlete runs the risk of their child getting into steroids. Because what will happen is that your child will work and work and work and work and train and train and train. And after a certain point, they'll see there are other athletes that still are superior to him or her. And then they'll find out that that athlete who just won a $100,000 race or a $500,000 tennis match is on steroids. Your child was knocked out in the 3rd round and got $250. All right. So the steroids, which cost about 50 cents a pill, it's a no-brainer for those kids if they want to move up into the high level of athletic performance to go on to steroids. So the point is that this is becoming a circus of steroid users, and if that's the case, why would anybody here in Royal Oak or any other city want, or Troy, because we're filming here in beautiful downtown Troy, I should mention that we're here on Suter Street. Why would anybody want their child to become a professional athlete? Now, amateur, I'm all for it. College, I'm all for it. I hope the steroids don't creep into the college. I'm afraid maybe they've already done that. But again, these are just my opinions, not the opinion of Beaumont Hospital, and not even the opinion of my brother Fred. All right? So we'll keep on going. Study. Most kids wear bike helmets wrong. How many times have you seen this? How many times have you put a bike helmet on one of your children or grandchildren, and you're not quite sure? It fits kind of loose. The buckle comes this way, comes under the chin, around the ear, around the back of the neck, and you put it on and you look at it and it's kind of wobbly, right? I don't know, Dale, how do you wear your helmet? It fit pretty snug? Yeah. All right, Dale says his helmet fits pretty snug. But I've put these helmets on for years. I've seen at least 372,000 different types of helmets over the years. My kids never seem to be able to keep one helmet from one year to the next. And no two of them go on the same way. We need some kind of a standard, like, you know how you have a seatbelt in the car? If you go from one car to the other, do you have difficulty figuring the seatbelt out? No. It's a standard seatbelt. We need a Helmet Standardization Act. So I urge Governor Granholm to initiate legislation for a helmet, a standardized helmet for all children to wear, whether rollerblading, roller skating, etc. I might add, one concern I've always had about the helmets is that the children should be able to hear when they're wearing the helmet, right? They need to be able to hear traffic approaching, other things, sirens, so make sure that they can hear. But we need a standardized helmet with a standardized fastening, and if I'm elected president, that's what I'm going to do. All right, we'll go to the next article. Olestra products can shed warning label. Remember back, who remembers Channel 7 newscaster Denise Dodor? You remember Denise Dodor on Channel 7? Denise and I did a piece for Channel 7 when Olestra first came out. This is about, I guess, close to 10 years ago. Denise said to me on TV, on camera, Dr. Krug, what do you think about the label that says you can have fecal leakage? All right? So we both cracked up because I couldn't keep a straight face with fecal leakage on television. Anyway, the point was that I advised viewers that until we had more studies, we should not be giving children anything with Olestra in it. So you see today that I think Pringles was the first to come out with Olestra chips. And if you look today, you'll see on the grocery shelves fat-free Pringles with Olestra. Well, according to the FDA, now they can lift that warning of fecal leakage. But I can tell you right now that I have patients who have come in to see me with fecal leakage and not knowing they were taking it from the Olestra. Then I asked them if they were eating fat-free chips, etc. And to make a long story short, we stopped the fat-free chips. Excuse me for 1 second. Let's go down then to the next one. So they can shed that warning then. So let's see here. Could we pause for 1 second, Jay? All right. Seabiscuit offer puts a face on chronic fatigue syndrome. Excuse me. Some of you watching in the audience may suffer from the syndrome of chronic fatigue. Obviously, it's a life-changing condition that causes people to lose work, drop out of school. We have patients in the practice who suffer from it. We don't see as many cases of it today as we saw a few years back, but the people who came down with this syndrome, their lives were changed, and they never were to, they have not come back fully from that yet. The interesting information on chronic fatigue syndrome is if you look on the internet, there have been some improvements made in the therapy for it, and at this point we do recommend that patients seek medical treatment to see if those new treatments may be beneficial. At any rate, this movie came out, Seabiscuit. I forgot, I think Tobey Maguire was the lead character, and the point is that we would recommend all people see the movie and seek treatment for their chronic fatigue. This lady was apparently able to come back from it. Ear implants linked to meningitis. Out in the audience, we may have some people hard of hearing. Maybe you're turning on the volume of your television right now, and we want to alert you that if you were a candidate for a cochlear implant, you might want to talk to your doctor about vaccination against meningitis because there is a higher risk of meningitis in patients who have these implants. Going right straight through, here it is. The rate was 30 times higher among the children who received the implants, and that's certainly quite a statistic, 30 times higher rate of meningitis. You certainly wouldn't think that a cochlear implant would lead to something so devastating as meningitis. Let's move to another article here, celebrities and cigars. We've talked about this before, role models for children. We have Dale here today. Dale is 13 years old, working the camera here. And the point I want to make about this is that just like with alcohol, it's really not appropriate for celebrities to demonstrate their desire to smoke and drink in front of people, especially celebrities who have adoring fans. Because here's a celebrity here, I'm not sure who this is, but maybe Dale is looking at him right now and saying, you know, I would look good with a cigar in my mouth just like that. I wish I was smoking cigars. At any rate, be careful about what you do, what you let your kids get exposed to. We certainly don't approve of Arnold Schwarzenegger clenching a cigar in his teeth as the governor of California for all the children and adults to see that cigar smoking is in vogue. The same thing is true of the movies. All right. Again, Greek diet. People have studied the Greek Mediterranean diet, trying to figure out what it is about this diet that is beneficial. Is it the wine in the Italians? Is it the butter? Is it the olive oil? This article simply shows that you needn't look no further than olive oil. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dale. Excuse me. Excuse me. Why use premium gas when regular will do? It's interesting, as gas prices have gone up, the difference between low lead and the premium gas relatively has stayed the same. I brought this article today to let you know that most cars, most American-made cars, will function perfectly well on the lower octane. And there is no need in most cars, unless it is stipulated in your user's guide, to use the premium. I was talking to one of our engineering patients who is in this field, and he says far too many people are putting premium in their tanks when the low level unleaded will be just fine. So save a few bucks. I wanted, just as a Star Trek fan for many years, to note or comment on the death of Matt Jeffries. Any Star Trek fan knows the Jeffries tubes are named after him, and he died of a heart attack, age 82. May God bless him for all the contributions he made regarding the Star Trek series, which I was a fan of for many years. Jerry Lewis, with his lung disease, you see that he has now been quoted as having had sex with Marilyn Monroe. So it seems that's a fashionable thing to say. I'm sorry to even mention that in front of Dale over there. But at any rate, Jerry Lewis is on, as you can see from his appearance, he's on steroids for a chronic inflammatory lung disease. I wanted to simply note that the condition steroid psychosis is a condition where people start to have delusions because they're taking steroids. And if any of you in the audience are on steroids, and perhaps you think you've had sex with Marilyn Monroe, you may be having steroid psychosis, and you should talk to your doctor. But we know that that's something that we could spend some more time on. We'll move right along. Ice cream's fat, calories, melt away good humor. Just a quick comment on that to indicate that in most cases, ice cream is not a health food. Don't look at the calcium and say, well, it's high in calcium, it's a dairy serving. In almost all cases, ice cream is not a health food, it's a junk food. All right. If you want something healthy, maybe some plain yogurt, maybe a glass of skim milk, now you're talking. Ice cream is simply full of sugar. If it's low fat, they just add more sugar. That's all it is. And we don't really regard ice cream as a dairy serving. All right. I mean, yes, it has some calcium in it, but far too much fat or too much sugar. And don't think fat-free ice cream isn't full of sugar. Okay. And don't think you won't get fat on fat-free ice cream. You can certainly get fat on that. Prostate test unreliable for the young. You know this PSA prostate cancer test. Just a quick word on that, and that is that it's not as reliable in young people. That's my observation. If you say young, I'm talking 40, maybe 40 to 50, maybe 40 to 60. But we have picked up cancer with it. And the key to PSA in all age groups is to, number one, recognize that younger people should have lower levels, right? You don't just say that 5 and up is bad. You say that 1 to 2 is good for a 20-year-old. 2 to 2.5 is good for a 30-year-old. Maybe 3 to 4 for a 40-year-old. You see? If a 40-year-old has a level of 5, that's high. You don't say that's unreliable. That's high for that young fella. Now, if you don't do anything about it, and then the next year the 40-year-old guy is now 41, and you check his PSA again, and now it's 5.9 or 6.2, you've got a trend going here, and that's the key. All right. My floor director here, Dale, is telling me I've got 5 seconds or minutes. 5 minutes. Oh, I can do a lot in 5 minutes, Dale. You'll see what I can do. All right. So anyway, I would, when you see articles like this in the paper, my fear is that somebody reading the newspaper or watching the internet will see that article and go, oh, I knew it. I'm not going to get that PSA test anymore. Maybe I'll start getting it when I'm 65. You know, big mistake. And in my opinion, irresponsible reporting. There should always be a balance. In other words, prostate test unreliable for young, then a counterpoint, this doctor says, no, it is reliable, And plus, what else do we really have that picks up cancer that reliably? We don't. Let's see. I'm not sure. I wanted to comment a little bit about this war in Iraq. We lost 2 more soldiers yesterday. They were looking into some kind of an explosion, then they were killed. They're murdered when they came to investigate. And now we seem like we're inexorably heading towards 600 GIs lost and thousands wounded in this exploitation that was put together by President Bush and his comrades and his father, of course. His father was the one that called for the New World Order. You remember back in 1991, President George Bush Sr. wanted the New World Order. It seems like he's getting it, that first Bush. Anyway, I have some things to say if I have time today. As a Republican, I've been Republican all my voting life, and I have some very interesting things to comment on if I have time today. Poison remedy on its way out. If you look on your shelves in your medicine cabinets and you see Ipecac, I-P-E-C-A-C, that's been a standard in medicine cabinets in kitchens and bathrooms for many decades. If your child takes poison, give them Ipecac. Now it turns out Ipecac has more side effects, including heart damage, and has now been banned pretty much. We should not have it. If you have Ipecac in your home, please throw it away. Odd to say how the poison remedy is itself poison. All right, thank you, Dale. Fish may cut Alzheimer's risk. Now, we're going to have another article on fish today because of the contaminants in fish. But when we speak of fish and Alzheimer's, what we're really talking about is the vitamin E, the omega-3, and the lecithin and the niacin contained in fish. These elements, these nutrients, help to improve brain function. And when they said years ago, you remember they said fish is brain food. I don't know who came up with that concept. I was a young boy and I was told that. I was like 5 and they said fish is good for your brain. So I ate the fish. I didn't know the difference. Back in 1956, 57, I don't know what they knew about fish and brain food. But somebody thought about that and somebody came up with that idea. I wonder where it comes from. At any rate, we have about a minute left on this show. Let me just do maybe 3 or 4 quick article titles. But those of you wishing to avoid Alzheimer's disease should consider eating more fish. We'll talk about the caveats later. Now, children, eat your pizza. When we come back on next week's show, we're going to talk about how pizza can actually be a healthy food. We are going to talk about advertising and its devastating impact on child alcohol use. We are going to talk about high cholesterol and its effect on the kidneys. We are going to talk about this article of Herb Brooks, who fell asleep while driving, this one who had the miracle hockey team. There's a movie out with Kurt Russell now. And I want to thank you all for joining us on this show. We look forward to seeing you next week. And again, happy birthday to my daughter, Chloe. Bye for now.